Talk us through the reasoning behind Taylor's omission.
Yeah, I mean, probably not dissimilar, Ian, to the reasons I spoke to you about with Bernie Vince. You know, I think there's recognition by everyone that when Taylor gets the ball, particularly some of the goals that he can kick, that's not under question. But you know, the game now, as I think you also realise, and you only got to look at to what most clubs talk about. You know, the defensive pressure and those aspects, which is really, you know, without sounding like a broken record, that's really the aspect of the game when you haven't got the ball, is the area I want Taylor to improve on. So he started off in that area really well at the start of the year, but it's certainly dropped off in the last probably 3 or 4 weeks. So similar reasons to the Bernie Vince.
Ben Hart said yesterday there are only probably 3 or 4 guys that could hold their heads up from last week. Have you been fairly savage on them in terms of how they need to respond this week?
Well, I've been firm, but I haven't had to be savage, Tom, because they have great personal pride in their own performances. So they would be, as you can imagine, as a player, you know, they wouldn't be feeling too good about themselves in terms of that performance. And externally from the club, I mean, I don't have to be savage because everyone else does it for me. You know, so and they do a great job of it. So sometimes my role is to come through the other way. But no, look, really poor performance. What it does do is gives this group an opportunity now to respond. So that's pretty much what we've concentrated on, is our preparation. Because if you're not careful as a group, Tom, what happens is you can wallow in that sort of self-pity, you know, the way you feel. But the bottom line is the AFL says, boys, there's a game on like this Saturday, and we ain't changing the time. So you need to get ready and get organised, because if you want a response, you need to prepare for it. And so that's been the major challenge, and it always is in those sort of poor performances.
Yeah, I've also asked a question just to go back to Taylor.
Yeah.
Is he an integral part of the future of this club, say, for the next decade?
If he continues to improve, yeah, absolutely. Why would you ask that, Mark?
No, I was just wondering, because obviously, you know, he's getting towards the end of his contract, and the GWS stuff and all that's going to rise in the next little bit of time. I just wondered whether, obviously, you guys worked really hard to keep Kurt when there was a bit of interest in Gold Coast. Would it be the same, I suppose, sort of weight towards trying to keep Taylor?
If he continues to perform. At the moment, he goes back to the SANFL, as Bernie Vince did a couple of weeks ago, for the reasons which we think are correct. Now, if Bernie hadn't injured his hamstring this week, he probably would have come back into our side. So I think that's the sort of response that we're looking for. But yeah, clearly, just because we don't select someone or they go back and play in the SANFL is not an indication that we don't want them at our footy club. I mean, if that was good rationale, I mean, most clubs would lose a lot of players, would they not? Yeah. Every club now talks about it, do they not? You know, defensive pressure, frontal pressure, hold the ball in the forward line. Now, to do that, you know, you've got to get to a player quickly. You've got to put a tackle on. You've got to force them to the boundary. You can't have them step around you. There's contested balls. There's got to be one. And Taylor's, to his credit, has improved in those areas, particularly early in the season. I'm saying at the moment he's dropped off in those areas. Good thing here is that we've seen Taylor be able to do it to the level that's been able to keep him inside. I just want him to get back to that level, not ask him to do something that he hasn't been capable of doing, which might have been sort of this time last year or whenever it was that we omitted Taylor. So,
Neil, is Taylor somewhat a victim of Kurt Tippett's emergence as you keep forward? Given that early in the year, when Kurt wasn't there, Taylor probably played some of his better football.
No, I think they're different players, Corey. I think they're completely different types of players. And, you know, I could argue that Taylor Walker doing the things that we want him to do, as well as the offensive stuff and the defensive stuff, you know, gives us a nice blend up there. So, no, I don't think he's a victim of Kurt Tippett. I think we need to be better than that, don't we? Oh, the players realise how poor it was, Graham, you know, and... you know, if we go back to Ian's comments from Paul Roos, you know, this club sets very high expectations. You know, and that sort of loss, probably more importantly, not so much the margin, but you know what our supporters wouldn't like is the way we went about it. You know, so, and that's a high expectation we have, and when it happens, you know, and the negative against it, none of us at the Adelaide Football Club like it, internally or externally, including the coach. But the bottom line is that we created it, therefore it's our responsibility to change it. And there's only one way to do it, and we can sit here all day and talk about it, but we need to see some action. Oh, well, I'm in communication, not all the time, Mark, with Jeff Geesham, but I do have contact with him, as I should. And we've just asked to keep an eye on it, that's all. And it's no different to... I think there's some hot spots in footy. Okay, let's forget about the individuals at the moment. There's some hot spots around the stoppage, with guys like Judd and Goddard and those types of quality players. There's some hot spots now in the forward 50, and let's use Tippett, Rewalt. Give me some more guys. Franklin, that type of key type forward. So, if I was an umpire, that'd be the areas I'd be looking at. And I need to look at them, not look at the ball coming in. That's all, and that's all we ask. Yeah. Well, Gold Coast is. I didn't see them live, obviously, but I saw them play last week in their local derby up there. I thought they were fantastic. And I think the other thing to remember about the Gold Coast, two things for me stand out for them. They've done a great job so far in getting a club together and what they've been able to do. They're probably going to play tomorrow 10 or 11, really senior AFL players, of pretty high quality, I would suggest, underpinned by some of the best talent in Australia. I think there's still this perception out there that Gold Coast run out with 21, 18-year-olds. But they've got a great foundation of, I'm talking Brennan and Bulk, Richatelli, Ablett, it goes on sort of 9 or 10 of those. So task is ahead of us for sure, absolutely. Yeah.
Bulk, do you think he would get a fairly frosty reception?
I don't know, he might get a couple of boos, but I don't think it'll worry Nathan too much. I mean, he's been through some of that here, when he had a bit of a indiscretion there with situation, but he copped that pretty well. He'll be okay.